Several opposition parties have now set out the policies they'd implement if elected. COVID-19 features prominently in the Workers' Party manifesto. It questions the government's earlier advice for people not to wear masks, to free vaccines for all Singaporeans when one is available, and to expand COVID-19 testing. It's also calling for an independent commission of an inquiry to examine lessons learned. Expanding COVID-19 testing is also in the ruling PAP manifesto, which focuses on building up what's been done so far to help Singapore emerge from the crisis stronger. The PAP will also continue with plans to make public health and safety an urgent task by supporting healthcare workers and agencies and establishing new norms of safe interaction. On economic support, most opposition parties call for the planned GST hike to be scrapped or suspended and proposed a national minimum wage. The Workers' Party called the planned hike yet another burden on households. The Progress Singapore Party says there should be no GST on basic necessities and also suggested a minimum income. This was echoed by the Singapore People's Party and Reform Party. Under its 4 Yes, 1 No campaign released last year, the Singapore Democratic Party has also called for the GST hike to be suspended. On jobs, most opposition parties call for unemployment insurance and benefits to be paid out. The Workers' Party proposed a redundancy insurance scheme for workers, while PSP urged for bolder economic stimuli and stronger support for SMEs. The SPP also called for a mandatory unemployment insurance and abolishing the retirement age, while the Reform Party says seniors should receive monthly benefits. SDP proposed an income for retirees aged 65 and over. The PAP's ongoing responses is to help companies retain workers and support self-employed people. It also pledged to create more jobs and take care of hard-hit sectors like aviation and tourism. With the HDB resale market affected by concerns over lease decay in recent years, the parties also called for the buyback scheme to be extended. The WP suggested it be offered to all HDB leases and to make it easier for singles to apply for built-to-order flats. To address lease decay, the PSP suggested extending the Selective On-Block Redevelopment Scheme, or SERS, to old HDB flats, a move also proposed by the SPP. SERS was introduced in 1995 to renew older estates with high redevelopment potential. But these sites are limited, and most have already been done. Climate change is also a focus of some of the manifestos, the WP suggesting at least 10% of Singapore's energy coming from renewable sources by 2025. The SPP suggested divesting from carbon-intensive operations and resources and mandatory assessments on environmental impact. The PAP says it will make sustainability a way of life, including producing more clean energy and reducing greenhouse emissions. It has also slowed down plans to develop Singapore, including Tuas Megaport and Changi Airport Terminal 5.
For a closer look, we're joined now by Dr. Mustafa Izzuddin, Senior Analyst in International Affairs at Solaris Strategies Singapore. Good evening, Doctor. And given the magnitude of the COVID-19 pandemic, only two parties, PAP and Workers' Party, appear to be addressing the issue in their manifestos. How do you think this is going to resonate with voters?
Well, it certainly resonate with voters. It will be on the minds of voters. You'll see in the for the People's Action Party, the ruling party, they will be defending the handling of the pandemic and will be seeking a strong mandate to continue the battle against the pandemic. And I think for the Workers' Party, they will be looking to point to the flaws of how the PAP has handled the pandemic and has called for an inquiry. I think because they felt it is going to be on the minds of voters, that's why both the ruling party as well as the Workers' Party have included it as a centrepiece of their manifesto.
The opposition seems to be converging on a number of issues, GST, for example, being one. What will make the difference to voters? How will they sort of work out between them or between the different parties which one might be best suited for them?
I think you kind of run away from traditional bread and butter issues. I think that will remain the centerpiece of the manifestos of both the ruling party as well as the opposition parties, municipal considerations as well. And also you see that depending on the segments of the electorate that you are looking at, I mean, you must understand there is both a diverse and sophisticated electorate that the ruling party and the opposition needs to cater to. So if you look at the younger voters, of course, they are looking at issues that are on sustainable development, climate change, on the liberalization of the political landscape in Singapore. So they have those issues that they are thinking, or even job security as well. For the slightly older folk and probably the elderly folk, they're looking more at also perhaps job security, health, retirement, savings, and whether their future generations will be taken care of. So there's a lot of issues across the board that would have to be catered to the specific segments of the electorate. And that's why I think the ruling party as well as the opposition would need to have general policies, but also specific policies for each of the segments of the electorate.
Dr. Mustafa, let's talk about the prospective candidates that we'll see tomorrow and the ones that we've already seen being introduced. We've seen plenty of new faces, but both the Workers' Party, PAP as well, have not been so forthcoming about exactly where they'll be contesting. There are some question marks that remain over that. Why do you think that parties are keeping their cards so close to their chest here? What advantage does that bring them?
Perhaps they're waiting for the other party to reveal their cards first before they reveal theirs. So it's sort of a political game that's going on. But I think importantly, there is the political advantage to be gained by holding the political cards close to your chest and showing your hand, when the time requires you to do so. But at the same time, if it will be at the eve of nomination day, if you continue to wait, the electorate may not know who's standing in the constituency, and you're wasting valuable time in introducing yourself to the constituents. So there is the double edge in having that secrecy, but there's also the advantage as well. So I think right now they are looking at what cards are available to them, and then they will show their hand when they feel is the most politically advantageous for them.
And could you give us some examples, perhaps, at which constituencies would such secrecy be particularly useful to the various parties?
Well, we are definitely looking at East Coast and Marine Parade for the Workers' Party. They are holding those cards close to their chest, as well as to some extent Sengkang as well. If you look at Tanjong Pagar for PSP, yes, the lineup is there, but there is a caveat that they may change the lineup. So there are a few sort of ongoing developments within the political parties. So I think what's important right now is to wait for nomination day. I think that's when we have a clear picture of who's standing where, and then we will have a much clearer understanding of what are some of the issues the parties are campaigning for, and then the voters can then cast their ballot accordingly.
So you've mentioned East Coast, that in particular might be a key battleground, but other areas are also emerging over the hustings as well, and we're likely to see three-cornered contests in these elections. So what to you should be those battlegrounds that we should be paying attention to?
I think as far as key battlegrounds go, I've mentioned East Coast. That's one of them. But even more important is Aljunied, because Aljunied was a close fight in 2015. So it could go either way. So I think that's a key battleground, a hotspot that we should be looking at. Beyond Aljunied, of course, we have East Coast, to some extent Marine Parade. And to the west, of course, we have the West Coast GRC. That's worth a close watch. Beyond that, I think the SMCs are also worth looking at, and particularly the SMC in Potong Pasir. And to some extent, perhaps Bukit Batok SMC, and Sengkang, because it's a new GRC, and there is the unpredictability factor as well. So there's some of these battlegrounds worth keeping a close watch on, and we'll just have to see how the battle plays out. And
in recent days, the Workers' Party has asked for...
Sorry, just one more thing. So even for the three-cornered fights as well, there are a couple of GRCs where there may be potential three-cornered fights. But I think for three-cornered fights, I think when it comes to nomination day, it's more likely to be in an SMC, a single-member constituency, and then a GRC, a group representation constituency. So I think that's how it's going to play out. And but I think it's in the interest of the opposition to avoid a three-cornered fight. And a one-to-one fight, and I think that would be the best option for the opposition camp.
Yeah, one last question for you. In recent days, Workers' Party has asked for a more balanced parliament. PAP says it wouldn't recommend risk-taking. The Prime Minister today said it's not realistic for the PAP to take every seat. What's your take on sort of the two statements coming from the two parties?
Well, my take is that we should let the voters decide. I think it's important for both the ruling party as well as the Workers' Party to clearly state their political position on parliamentary representation, opposition voices, and the shape it would take. So I think because they have clearly sort of stated their position, and certainly during the campaign, this issue may well be brought up again about what kind of parliamentary representation that the ruling party is sort of stating as well, and what the Workers' Party in particular are stating. So I think that's very clear. So I think it's best to let the voters decide, and they will best know what appeals to them most. Can I also just say one other point, which is important to mention, is that I think it has to be credited to both the ruling party as well as the opposition that they have such far and wide for candidates from different backgrounds, with varying diverse experience and very ages as well, and also from the public, private, and people sector. And you also have a record number of women candidates being unveiled in this particular election. So I think all of these points to the need for the various candidates from different backgrounds to link up to different segments of the electorate that we talked about earlier.
Yes, a fascinating day ahead for nomination day. Thank you very much for your thoughts this evening. Dr. Mustafa Izzuddin, Senior Analyst in International Affairs at Solaris Strategies